It's so good to be here with all of you, and I'm loving getting to experience a little bit of Western North Carolina just by seeing your trees and your flowers and your porches in the background. Thank you for hosting me. This morning I'm going to be talking to you about change and about how change affects us emotionally, how we can have an effect on change in how we manage ourselves emotionally. We experience individual changes and disturbances, things like marriage, divorce, birth, death, moving. But I want to talk today mostly about the changes, the disturbances that we are experiencing in our collective world. We've been experiencing large change and small change. We ask, what does it mean to have a deadly virus creeping unseen through our communities? What does it mean to be white, to be Black? These intersect in ways that matter, whether dealing with the healthcare system or interacting with the criminal justice system or jogging down the street or just watching birds in a park. The important underlying question is, what does it mean to be who we are? And who will we be in this time when mountains are being cast into the sea? Change comes in so many forms, ranging in intensity of experience from new carpeting to revolution. Remarkably, as different as changes can be, they also have a great deal in common with each other. You may have noticed that you had personal experiences of the changes in our world before you had a communal experience. You learned about and reacted to COVID. You learned about and reacted to George Floyd. And later you learned how others were reacting to these changes. Our experience of change starts internally with our personal experience. And Jean, I wonder if you would please share the picture of the emotional cycle of change that I sent to you at this point. Thank you. So I'm going to walk you through this little doodle. As you can see, the top half is labeled optimism, and the bottom half is labeled pessimism. This is kind of a timeline where we start at the left and we move to the right. It begins with uninformed optimism, and then we descend down towards uninformed pessimism. Then we cross that line and enter this trough where eventually we come to a point where we have to decide, are we going to recommit with determination or are we going to give up? After that, assuming that you recommit with determination, there comes a point of hopeful realism, and then thereafter informed optimism. So let's take the example of getting married or moving in together. Maybe that's a good example for Pride Month. When we take that plunge, we start with a lot of excitement and optimism. This is so great. I get to wake up with this person every day. I'm committed to them, they're committed to me, and life is wonderful. Eventually things, however, take a turn. Whether days, weeks, or months later, eventually we hit reality. The honeymoon is over. We start to realize, oh my God, this person has problems. And the rose-colored glasses are gone. In their place may come lenses that make everything seem like a problem. And we come to a place where we have a decision to make. Am I going to stick this out and put the work in? Or am I going to walk away? It's a choice that everyone gets. If you choose to walk away, your experience with this particular change curve is over and you start another one. You exercise your sacred creative power to form your identity by walking away. If you recommit, then you stay with it until you build a more seasoned optimism. You recognize Yeah, there are problems, but there are also solutions and benefits. And overall, it's okay. Success comes after that. So this diagram provides us with a map for a single change. However, modern life means tons of changes all at once. You are at every point along this curve with different things. You are excited about something that is about to begin or has just begun. You are disappointed that something didn't turn out the way you had hoped. You are discouraged that something seems hopelessly lost. Somewhere in your life, you are wondering if you should walk away or keep trying. Somewhere in your life, you are realizing that it's not so bad. And somewhere in your life, you are saying, that's no biggie. I handled it. You are at every point of this curve all of the time because of the numbers of changes happening all of the time in our lives. I want to focus on that turning point at the bottom of the curve, where it starts to move up again and moves through that decision point. That moment is a spiritual moment. And with that, Jean, you can stop sharing the image for now. I call attention to that turning point because according to James Luther Adams, we share a tiny portion of God's creative power when we decide if we are in or out. It is here that we are exercising our sacred creative power to form our own identity. What does walking away mean in this changing environment? Well, it does look different for each change curve. Walking away from the coronavirus curve might mean running out into the beach without a mask on and playing in big groups without a care in the world. Walking away from racism means claiming I'm not racist or refusing to allow the discomfort even to begin. So those are a couple of examples of what it means to walk away. But what does it mean to be in, to choose to recommit? I believe one way is through being fully present. A couple of years ago, I had breakfast in Columbus with a gay African-American woman named Sharon, just days after the white supremacist rally happened in Charlottesville. One of the first things I loved about Sharon is that she loves conversation. When I told her I wanted to meet her and just get to know her, she jumped at a chance. I asked her to tell me her life story, and she did. She told me about how her parents sent her to school with white kids so she could have a good education. And she grew up hating herself for being Black, wishing her hair could be long and straight and blonde, wishing her mouth could be tiny like those white girls' mouths. Her mother was a fundamentalist Christian, and so that was her world and her comfort zone, all Jesus, all the time. She told me that she experienced tons of transformations within herself as she slowly, over the years, let go and moved past the barriers that had held her back from herself. Realizing she can be Black and beautiful. Realizing she can listen to sacred music and be valuable. Realizing she can be gay and worthwhile. When she saw what was happening in Charlottesville, she was moved to compassion. She realized they're just scared. She chose to be fully present. Since then, she has been very intentional about talking to conservatives and white folks. She told me about a conversation she had with a conservative man at a Starbucks in one of the whitest parts of town. When she asked him, "What do you think about Black Lives Matter?" he said, "Doesn't really affect me. I don't know Black people." She said that filled her with pain. "You don't care?" She said, "I wanted to smack him." And yet she didn't. She stayed there with him. She chose to be fully present. Asking herself to listen to that, even though it caused her pain, gave her an audience with him. It allowed her to be an influencer in his life, not to convert, but to nudge. To be a Black person he knows who isn't scary, isn't trying to take anything away from him. She told me that the journey she took before coming out had not been an overnight experience. It was 14 years, 17 years, and it started with meeting a man who was gay and thinking, his voice is weird. But he was a classmate and she got used to him, and then he became her friend, and then she became his friend. And she started getting to know others who were gay. She started really liking hanging out with them. She started trusting them and started telling them about her life. She started telling them about these guys. She was dating them, telling them about her terrible dates, and hearing them say, "Girl, are you sure you're into boys? Because you do not seem to be having a good time. Maybe someday you want to go out with a girl." And she said, "No, honey, no way," until she actually went out with a girl. And one day she was surprised to wake up and find out, what do you know? I think I'm gay. All of that happened because of people who were present in her life, being themselves, being with her, and loving her, not pushing her, but supporting her. They chose to be fully present. And I'm going to get up and close my window because somebody's mowing their lawn just outside. It may help a little bit. Some of us are totally sold on mindfulness practices. Practicing presence goes beyond the meditation cushion to being fully present with people. Practicing presence requires practicing self-awareness too. Awareness of our own triggers, awareness of our limitations, awareness of our growing edges. Sharon said, "I have a lot of mercy and I have a lot of compassion because I know what it's like to change." Because I know what it's like to change. When we know what it's like to change, we recognize that true change usually comes in a way that is quiet and somber. It doesn't come in a way that is loud or preachy. It's waking up and realizing in the quiet gray of the morning, am I gay? Or am I racist? That's the end of my story about Sharon, but I encourage you to find her online. She's amazing. She recently posted a YouTube video. You can find her under her performance name, which is Counterfeit Madison. And she posted this video that is a conversation about what is race. It's a profoundly insightful dialogue and so worth the 30 minutes that it takes to watch the whole thing. Jean, would you put up that emotional cycle of change again for a little bit? One thing I'm learning through all of this is that not one of us gets through this curve simply by agreeing that something is a good idea. It's a process. It takes weeks or months or 14 years. And still there is going to be work to do. Look at how long it has been since Stonewall and the incremental growth that has taken place along the way. There have been moments in time in which there were larger steps forward, but the culture has changed slowly. When I look back to Ferguson, to Trayvon Martin, to Rodney King, I see tremendous progress because we are talking about this at a level we have not talked before. White folks are aware of their whiteness at a level that we have not seen before. Author William Bridges says that change happens very quickly, but transition, the shifting of the heart and the mind, happens slowly. So being fully present is the first step in making it through that curve at the bottom. It's how we survive long enough to choose to do the work of moving back up, climbing up that slope. It is how we exercise our sacred creative power to form our identity. Only 2 weeks ago, our national narrative was about returning to normal. 2 weeks ago was the first morning after George Floyd's death. So where are we on the curve now? I think that nationally we're already on the upslope with COVID. Here in Macon County, it seems you've just hit that place of informed pessimism with COVID. And our country and national discourse has been feeling this past week like it lives on that downslope with racism. The reality is that we have traveled this path before, but we also have not yet traveled this path because we are shifting. Our awareness is shifting. Our openness to our own culpability as white people is shifting. And as I tell my clients, new level, new devil. And so we still have to travel the path at this new level. At every new level and in every emotional cycle of change, we have the choice to walk away or to recommit. With COVID and with politics and with racist policies, we must exercise our sacred creative power to form our own identity. Okay, Jean, you can take it down for the last time now. Thank you. So what comes after being fully present? A few years ago, I was starting a new job, but feeling homesick for the employer I had just left. It was a change, it was a good change, but I was careening down that first slope. I remember being on an airplane and crying because I was just grieving, and I wrote an email to my old boss telling her how homesick I was. When she wrote back, she said, "Just stay focused on what's working well." Because I love her and I trust her, I did it. I did not ignore my losses. I just held them in perspective with the rest of the picture. And it made a huge difference. And so I believe that we get through the bottom part of that curve with our hearts and our minds still in one piece by first being fully present and then practicing gratitude. This bears repeating. Practicing gratitude does not mean pretending that nothing is wrong. We humans are really good at noticing what is wrong. We have to practice noticing what is good. That is what brings us perspective and balance. The bad and the good coexist. We can bear holding and working with the bad because we practice holding and remembering the good. Then we can expand from practicing gratitude to expressing appreciation. Appreciation for everyone who is traveling the curve with us. For those who are making sacrifices of their own peace of mind in order to be a few steps ahead and show us the path. We can get through these challenges by focusing on what's working well. We get through them by expressing appreciation for each other and for the folks working on the front lines. That includes protesters, and here's where it may get uncomfortable. It includes members of the police force who must be feeling confusion because it's so important to them to have each other's back and to be the good guys. And it must be confusing to always see, how do you do both? There is positive intent there. And of course, let's acknowledge and appreciate the amazing strength of our Black and brown neighbors and friends that live with a target painted on their backs because too often their basic humanity is not recognized. Let us appreciate our friends and neighbors who give up the chance to have it easy in order to serve us. Being fully present comes first. Appreciation and gratitude come in right after, in the next breath. It is in being fully present, practicing gratitude and appreciation, that we become able to hold each other's pain. Hold your neighbor's pain. Say, I love you. Ask, where does it hurt? And listen to the pain. This is how our souls survive. Let's be grateful for what's working well. Let's be open and willing to face change, to hold each other's pain, to stand in the fire of the chaos and support each other. Let's recommit to finding common humanity. Slow down. Connect to the depths of stillness beneath the choppy waves. Keep breathing. Be present. And remember, there is more to this world than what is wrong. Amen, and blessed be.